Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. Hi there. Welcome back to Reimagining Love. As you've noticed, I'm sure, we are living in a time where there are so many resources out here in the land of mental wellness and self-help and relationships. And I'm a contributor to this ocean of information. So these days, I've been talking a lot more about the need for discernment when we are approaching this type of content, a kind of discernment that helps us sift through what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And a guiding principle that I offer is that insight alone is not sufficient for our healing. I want you to be engaging with content that helps you go from just knowing some new things up here inside of your head to embodying some lessons that serve your understanding and your healing. And I love the fact that today's guest found her way into her work through eagerly reading self-help book after self-help book, trying to understand herself, and found that the piece she needed for her own healing journey was a felt somatic experience of being safe in relationships. And that's not necessarily a romantic relationship either. In fact, for her, it was not first and foremost in a romantic relationship. This can be in any anchoring relationship with friends, with family members, with mentors, with our pets. This guest is Jessica Baum. She's a licensed psychotherapist, and she's author of the books Anxiously Attached, and now more recently, the new book, Safe, an attachment-informed guide to building more secure relationships, which is the focus of our conversation today. So you're going to hear us discuss the science of how relationships offer us these healing anchors and how to create experiences of safety inside of our bodies, both from the outside in and from the inside out. You're going to hear us break down the dynamic nature of attachment styles or attachment patterns, as thank goodness, that's what Jessica calls them. And that whole idea that these are attachment patterns runs counter to the way that lots of people are speaking about attachment these days. And you're also going to hear about my favorite part of Jessica's work, which is her wheel of attachment, which brings more nuance to the whole topic of attachment. You're going to hear us speak about how to begin this type of somatic work, how to understand our own dynamic attachment patterns, and how to engage our right hemisphere of our brains more often to enrich and deepen our connections. We're going to talk also about healing in romantic relationships and how that's not always available for us in every pairing. But healing through doing our own work, that's always available to us. I hope this conversation offers you some perspective on the difference between cognitive knowing and embodied knowing, and how anchors of healing can be found all around us and within us if only we know where to look. Let's hear now from Jessica Baum. Jessica, it's great to have you here. Thank you for being here with me today.
I'm so excited for this interview. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The first thing I want to say to you is that we had our producer, Katie, and I asked a member of our graduate student, we have these graduate scholars who are all getting their master's degrees in marriage and family therapy at Northwestern University. And we had one of the members of the team help us with the prep for this conversation. And she loved your book so much. And she said, she said, my classmates are all sick of me because every single class this week, I have brought up something from the book. So just know that the entire first year cohort of marriage and family therapy trainees at Northwestern University is getting a healthy dose of Jessica this week.
That speaks to me so much because this book is written for everyone, but I really hope that therapists pick up this book and use it so much with their clients because I hope it speaks to therapists the most because it's such a roadmap to be used that way. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel touched when anybody, talks about what they found in my work, but I feel like there's a special place in my heart where when a therapist talks about what my work means to them, same thing, right? When we are on these bridges of moving between the therapy world and the public facing world, it's really so special when our people get it.
Right. Yes.
Well, I've got so much to talk to you about this beautiful book that you are offering to the world, but I want to start by asking you the question that I ask all of our guests. Are you ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, how are you reimagining love in one of your important relationships these days?
I am not in a primary romantic relationship right now, but I talk about finding your anchors. And I have a couple friends in my life that have been helping me understand love in such a new capacity. And I think the warmth and the consistency and just being there with me and being in it with me has allowed me to imagine on a partner that way. Not that my past partner wasn't like that he had qualities of that, but this is on a deeper level, I think more with me. So I'm just reorienting to that possibility of now I'm surrounding myself with all these deeper friendships that have more intimacy and more anchoring experiences. And can I imagine a romantic partner being in that space with me as I'm learning to receive that now?
What I love so much about what you're saying, one of the things that people know about me is if you start talking to me about your checklist of things that you want in a partner, I climb the walls with that checklist. And what you're talking about is you're talking about the somatic embodied experience that you are inviting towards you around romantic partnership. It's not about a list of traits that you're wanting in a partner. It's about, I want to be able to co-create this experience that I'm having in these friendships. And I love that you're also reminding us that the quality of love that we experience in our friendships is made of the same material as the qualities of experience we have with intimate partnerships. It's not these different kinds of love.
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. And I think you can heal in your romantic relationship. I didn't heal in my romantic relationship. It was part of my healing, but you just heal in relationships. And I think when your nervous system starts to recognize that someone is showing up consistently for you and they're in it with you and they're validating you, you're like, oh my God, this is love. This is what I need. And those qualities can show up in different people in different roles in your life. And primary relationship, romantic relationship, that's what I'm focusing on next. But it's definitely showed up in my life in so many ways that I feel so loved and supported at this point.
I also love that you are reminding us of a really important dialectic or both and piece, which is that you can feel full and connected in your relationships and still be available and interested in intimate partnership. I think sometimes we make it an either or, that if I'm seeking intimate partnership, it means I must not be fulfilled. Or if I'm really fulfilled, that means I shouldn't also need romantic partnership. And I hear you just sitting in that really juicy both and of both those things are true. You are feeling really connected to friendships in deeper and deeper ways, and you're still curious and available for intimate partnership.
100%. As the person who wrote Anxiously Attached, that was my first book. And as someone who loved love in my life, that part of my journey was learning how to receive love from people who weren't my primary romantic relationship and building that security there. Being someone who loved love, I needed to learn to cultivate the felt sense of support and connection from people who weren't my primary romantic relationship. That was my path. And I still desire that, but I don't need it from the same place. And my abandonment wound has healed a lot. And I talk a lot about that. So when it shows up, I think it's going to show up differently because of what I've walked through and how my relationships have deepened on such a deep level from doing this work.
Okay, well, let's get into the work. So you mentioned that you already have written a book, Anxiously Attached, and now your new book is called Safe, an attachment-informed guide to building more secure relationships. So can you just give us a window into your journey to writing Safe and what especially drew you to, I think what's so striking and important and challenging in all the best of ways in your book is that you really are helping us sit with the interpersonal neurobiology, the somatic layers, as well as the emotional and psychological and relational layers. It's a deeply integrative approach that you take. So can you just give us a window into why this book and why this approach?
There's so many reasons to why, like you mentioned, I study interpersonal neurobiology. I'm a human out there who struggled in my own relationships and have had to do my own work. And I help so many people walk through this process. And I think the why is because of what I experienced personally in my safe relationships and the transformation that happened for me. And then the geek in me that wants everyone to have the relational science to back up what healing really is. I think, when I was in my 20s, I wrote about it in my first book. I got diagnosed with anxiety and I was in the hospital. And I picked up Facing Codependency, which was such like a transformational book for me. And I read every single self-help book you could imagine under the sun, trying to help myself, right? And when I wrote Anxiously Attached, I wrote that book for that part of me. But when I wrote Safe, what I really wanted people to understand is that you can read every single self-help book under the sun, but healing relational trauma, healing attachment wounds, understanding attachment and healing happens in healing relationships. That you can't do it alone. And for so many years, from like my 20s to my 30s, I grabbed onto every self help book, but I didn't understand the relational neuroscience. And in some ways, I was spinning my wheels because what I really needed was to reach out and have anchoring relationships and to go into my body and have these somatic experiences that I offer in the book. These were the things that actually moved the needle rather than just the left hemisphere knowledge of everything. I needed to have the experience of everything. So I think part of Safe, it's this message of what you need to heal so that you're not spending years trying to understand attachment theory, but not understand the healing and the ingredients needed to move implicit memory and to move attachment wounds in your body.
Wonderful. I found it really touching the way that you write about and honor your mentor, Bonnie Badnack, who is somebody who my mentor, Mona Fishbane, I'm sure they're girlfriends. I'm sure that they've got a beautiful I think that they are colleagues with each other. They were like, the original people who were right there with the interpersonal neurobiology world. And I love just how you shined on her and you wrote about how feeling seen by her, even though the relationship that you have with her is a colleague, mentor, mentee relationship, you felt seen in that relationship. I think it's really important. I think we underestimate the whole book is about inviting us to think about all of our relationships as offering the possibility for anchoring. But I think that it's easy for us to leave out the mentor mentee relationship as part of that. So can you just speak a little bit to what it meant to you to feel seen by Bonnie?
Yeah. And that's one of the free things in the link that I'm going to provide you because I want everyone to experience Bonnie. It was profound. I just remember, so she helped me edit my first book. And I just remember having meetings with her. And after the meetings, I would just cry because she just showed up in all her wisdom, but oh my God, in compassion, in the way that she edited, but in the way that she was present with me in ways that I don't think I've ever experienced in my whole life. And she's helped me tremendously through the book. She studies years of interpersonal neurobiology. And in a lot of ways, I'm leaving a lot of her legacy through this book for the layman, because she teaches us therapists. She's written Heart of Trauma. She's brilliant, but we needed to have her information to be more accessible. And so I feel like we have this like soul contract. Bonnie and I had this soul contract to create this book. And I have had the lived experience because of Joe and Bonnie and the wisdom in the interpersonal neurobiology and making that so accessible for the readers is so much because she stepped in and helped me. Yeah. So if you want to experience her, there's a link for people who order the book where there's a 40-minute talk with me and Bonnie talking about what it feels like in your body to move from insecurity to security, which is an amazing talk. And partly because I just wanted people to access Bonnie.
I'm just thinking about, the folks who are going to be listening to our conversation. And I think there's a really open invitation here to look I want our listener to look at the entire landscape of relationship and what are the ways in which there's a mentor in your life that you can have that experience with. And also, who are you mentoring? Who is in your life who looks to you in that way, and that your healing then is supported by and amplified by your ability to be an anchor to somebody who's, coming up behind you, even if they're just a little bit behind you.
Absolutely. And and the science is an anchor, and she was an anchor. And my therapist, I talk about Joe, is an anchor, and friends became an anchor. And I think one of the things that Bonnie said to me early on when I was working on my first book is that you don't have to heal alone. You shouldn't heal alone. None of this is about doing it alone. And as someone who's primarily anxiously attached, and I talk about in Safe how we have many attachment patterns, we're never just one style. God, just the relief to know I'm not supposed to do this alone. And I think so many people, out there in the world get this independence, self-reliance.
Totally.
You got to fix yourself. What's wrong with you? And I think Bonnie just what a relief to know that we're not supposed to heal this alone. We actually need the help and support. That just was so much relief for me when I first encountered her. I was like, thank you for the permission.
And we need it because we actually need it for the healing. We don't need it because we are weak or we can't do it alone. That's beautiful. Okay, two things that you just brought up that I want to make sure that we address. Can you define, we've used this word anchoring. Can you just talk to us about what is an anchor? What does it feel like to have an anchor? Can you just help us operationalize that term a little bit?
Yeah. In the book, I go into Stephen Porges's work around the nervous system. And I think that, the word anchor could be kind of vague, but I talk about how nervous systems hold nervous systems. And what we need to go into the body and to access our core wounds and to regress and all that is a person that's in a lot of a ventral state. And I call the ventral state a state of safety for the book. But for those of you who maybe don't know what that is, our nervous system has three states: dorsal, sympathetic, and ventral. And ventral is our highest form of evolving. It's our social engagement system. It's a state of safety. It's where we feel expansive. And when we are getting in touch with our wounds, we need someone to be present with us, where their nervous system doesn't get dysregulated, and they can hold our dysregulation. Often in couples, more often than not, our partner is dysregulating us, and then we're dysregulating them back. And it's happening on, a telepathic level, because this is how nervous system speaks to each other. So while you can do this in partnership, if your partner has a lot of ventral, if they have a state of safety within them, we need to find anchors who have this type of ability to be present with us, because this is the missing developmental link that often insecure babies. So when we're internalizing our parents, often the thing that doesn't make them safe is their inability to be present. Not that they were bad parents, not they were not loving us enough. Love was not the ingredient, but it's the sense of being present enough with that baby for the baby to feel safe inside. And so if we didn't get that, we fortunately have the neuroplasticity and the ability to rewire internal safety through anchoring relationships. And so interpersonal neurobiology really believes co-regulation and safety and self-love are born of experiences of internalizing others who can provide us with this. So we do need anchoring relationships in order to do the work. And it's an important message. What was wounded early in relationship must be healed. It needs a lot of adult anchoring. So I just want the readers to know that, because I don't want people to, I spent, I don't know how many decades of my life trying to heal myself, not fully grasping the science. So when you have the science, you can start to look for these people. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, I don't have an anchor. And I can't tell you, we all start that way. Many people feel that way, and I can hold that with you. And the book talks about past anchors and cultivating through, animals and a teacher or a coach or someone, and then going through your Rolodex and starting to look at who has that capacity now. And it is a process. It's definitely a process.
The other piece that you were talking about a moment ago that I really, really I was underline, triple highlight this part, is you describe attachment styles in a way that is more holistic, more alive, more dynamic than, right now. It's so, I've been in this work for such a long time. it's fascinating, like the way that attachment language has really crossed out of academia and out of therapist's office into the public vernacular. And I'm here for it, absolutely. Until we start talking about it like it's a stamp on side of somebody's head with like a capital letter. And it's, so the way that you write in this holistic, alive, dynamic way is really important. So can you talk to us about why saying and believing I'm anxiously attached and just like leaving it there flattens, your story, and talk to us about the wheel of attachment and how that can be helpful to us.
The wheel of attachment is a game changer. I think, even with Instagram, even in my Instagram, there's a lot of left shifted. You fit in this category, you fit in that category. And that's what the general public likes. But what this book does, it's what sells them.
Because I'm this and you're this, and now the whole world makes sense. Yeah.
And I definitely have plenty of that content out there. But what this book does is it helps you understand how you developed these patterns. But the wheel kind of, if I can describe it, like if security's on the bottom and disorganized, which some people will know as fearful, is on the top, and then anxious on the right and avoidant on the left. The truth is, as you go up security to anxiety, as the anxiety increases and you up the wheel and it becomes rage and anger and extreme, that's when you get to disorganized. And the same thing for avoidant. So you can have like kind of an avoidant parent who's a little checked out, but if they become so neglectful and so disengaged, you get to disorganized. So you're kind of learning that putting up the volume on anxiety and avoidance gets you to disorganized. So they're all connected. And what the other thing about the wheel is, with one parent, you can have more than one experience. Everyone says, I have an anxious mom. Well, you might have pockets of security. You might have a lot of security and a little bit of avoidance. In one household, you can experience every part of this dynamic. A brother could be clingy and a father could be absent and a mother could be anxious. And those are stereotypical. But like the wheel is about how we can move, how this is all moving. And in one relationship, if someone is very, very avoidant and their avoidance gets really extreme, we tip into disorganization. That's normal. Anytime we're in the extremes of avoidance and anxious, we move into a disorganized state. And so it's really important to start to see how they're all connected to each other.
When you did that example of like the family where there's an anxious mom and a clingy brother and a distant dad, you're saying that within me, as I try to navigate those relationships, I have different experiences inside of my body vis-a-vis my brother, vis-a-vis my mom. What's alive in me, the coping strategies, the patterns that are developing, they're not neat and tidy. It's like I don't become a thing. I'm forever responding to how I feel in each of those.
Yeah. And if you had let's say, for example, you had a dad who was sometimes secure, but then other times really avoidant, and you start dating me and I'm really avoidant, that might wake up that part of you. But if you had a mother who was really anxious and sometimes secure and anxious, and you have a best friend who's a lot of anxiety, that might wake up that part in you. Like it's so nuanced and it's so layered. And so we internalize all the close relationships in our primary environment. And those play out more than just in our intimate relationships. Sometimes it plays out with our boss. Sometimes it's still playing out with a parent.
Okay, so given all of that, where the rubber hits the road then is like, what is the kind of first way in? Like, what are you wanting us to notice inside of our body vis-a-vis, for example, a boss, like as a way of starting to understand, wait, what's coming up in me about my past? Given that if it's not as neat and tidy of like, oh, I'm avoidant, that's why I feel like this. What is it? What's our entry point for starting to understand, wait, why am I feeling so reactive in this dynamic with my boss, for example?
I mean, there's so many different entry points, but I think, what is my body feeling around this person? Where is it feeling it? Can we be with that feeling? And have I felt that before? So maybe if your boss is really critical, or you're scared that they're going to yell at you, or they're really reactive, what happens with your body when you're around that? Like, where is it living? And have you experienced this dynamic before? And what do you do when you feel that sense of fear or anxiety? And I'm just starting to be with, interoception is a big thing that I teach in the book. So learning how to have interoception. So learning how to connect with the streams of information that are literally telling us our stories of what we've been through living in our body, that get woken up in our current relationships and making those connections. starts really somatically.
It's such an important, I mean, it's what I find so vital about this whole movement within our field to really prioritize the body is that I think it's so
Thank God.
easy to go top down. Like, what am I thinking?
And I think so many clients, they really love to know the intellectual reason. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be really honest. If you're listening, I wrote 2 books because I want to intellectually understand this stuff.
Right.
But writing 2 books on it and intellectually understanding it is an anchor for me, but it doesn't bypass the somatic work that we have to go through to heal it, even as professionals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so stay there for a minute because you write about our right hemisphere and our left hemisphere. So another place where you're kind of busting up the, kind of popular understanding. Can you walk us through what it feels like to be in our right brain versus our left brain when it comes to relationships?
Yeah. And I'll be clear, like our left brain and our right brain are always working. They're always on, they're always working in tandem. And I speak vaguely, but I talk about the right hemisphere leading or the left hemisphere leading. And so I think this is very much Ian McGilchrist's work. And so I think the best description to help your listeners understand it, to help you guys understand it is it's like we have 2 different people in our brain who are shaking hands all the time. And the left person is looking at the world like it's a map, and they are focused on surviving. And they are like, when they look at a tree, they label it a tree. What could this tree be for me? How could this tree be useful for me? They are task oriented. This is a very linear part of our brain. And it's also where where I hit out in our hustle culture, workaholism, very left. It's very, very much welcomed in our culture to be left shifted. The right side of the brain, this is the part of the brain that is relational. So this is not just a tree, but how do I feel when I'm in the presence of this tree? Can I be in this moment with this tree? It's about, and I don't even want to use the word tree. Like, what does it feel like to be in this moment? So it's the reason why we shift into left. The reason why I shifted into left, the reason why many people shift into left is because our attachment wounds are stored in our body and our implicit streams are connected to our right hemisphere. So in order to help us protect ourselves from our own pain, we become more left shifted. We become more task oriented. This is more rewarded from our culture, but we get very disconnected from our body and our bodily experiences. And we can feel very lonely in the left because the left is not as relational. There's not a relational component. So as you start to heal and you do this work and you get more in touch with the streams of information in the right, it's a journey, but you deepen in relationship to everything. You deepen in the moment. And if the right is taking the lead, you're really thinking about every single thing. You're in your body. Your needs are changing every single second. You become less of a robot. And that was my journey. I mean, I was very left shifted. And people were like, you're so successful and you're so accomplished. And look at all the clients that you see all day. And I was exhausted and I wasn't having a lot of depth in my life. And I was like, I'm so meaningless at this point. And then I did the work and I'm like, oh my God, now everything has meaning. And I'm so much more embodied and I'm so much more grateful. So it's really important. It's really hard to put into words. But those 2 people are working hand in hand. And the book is just trying to help you shift into the streams of information in your body so that we can connect more to your right hemisphere and you could be more connected in your life and relationally.
It's not a good bad thing. It's not like you're saying, like these 2 hemispheres are shaking hands. They're both essential. And that left shift that you're describing for lots of us is a survival strategy. It's a coping strategy. It's an attempt to manage that which has felt overwhelming.
Yeah, but I didn't even know that. Most people don't even know that that's what they're doing.
Right, because it just feels like normal. And it is, as you're saying, it is reinforced by the culture. People are impressed by by left shifting.
I used to tell people, I'm so busy. They're like, that's so great. I'm like, no, I'm
No.
exhausted. I have no time I was a stepmom. I had no time for them on the weekend. They used to tell me, oh, all Jessica does is get massages and she lives in the bathtub. And I would spend from Friday night to Sunday trying to recover my nervous system so that I could go back to work on Monday. And I had no energy for them. They were the biggest reasons I decided to do the work. I was like, wow, I am failing as a stepmom. I have to say they were great catalysts for me.
Yes, here's for the catalysts. Yep. It's also just like a little sort of nerdy side note, for somebody who's listening, who's been in this work, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is like the reason that therapeutic approach to healing trauma is so effective is because it is that right left, like kind of helping those two hemispheres integrate, right? Because the traumatic memory, the associations and the somatic experiences are in the right hemisphere and the story is over here in the left hemisphere. So that's that's how foundational all of what Jessica is talking about in terms of that like right brain, left brain, is that we really do get split for very, very, very good reasons. And the healing is the integration.
Absolutely. Thank God for my workaholism. I was not ready to face it all.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
Uh-huh.
I needed a safe environment and I needed safe people to actually go there. That had to come before the work, right? Like we can't go there if we don't feel safe.
It's also why I think it's so important to bless all of those versions of ourselves, right? To bless I think it's one of the hard things about coming into this awareness as you start to look back on all of your choices, all of your behavior. You're like, oh my God, that's a trauma response. That's a trauma response. And can we bless it? Can we bless every part of it? Not that we're glad that it happened, but just to know that there's wisdom in all of it. There's a kind of wisdom in all of it.
I talk in chapter 3 about protectors, and that workaholism was a protector. And I talk about welcoming our protectors. And I know if you're listening, you're like, oh, we don't like our protectors. But usually, like all of that blessing of those forms are just trying to protect us from something else. And as soon as we start to realize that and be with what they're actually protecting us from, which usually lives in the body, they don't have to work so hard.
They can retire. Okay, so going back to this idea of anchors and learning what safety feels like in your body, as we learn to ask ourselves, what does safe feel like inside of my body? How does that start to change our relationships? If I know what safe feels like inside of me, what changes in the space between you and me?
Yeah, I think if you can cultivate safe already inside of you, you're in a really good place. But most people need to experience safe outside of themselves first in a relational experience. And a big part of the work is internalizing the safe people now. So what a baby does is they internalize their parents. And if their parents had a neuroception of safety a lot and they were pretty attuned, they're internalizing that safety. But if your parents were more anxious or their nervous system didn't provide that for you, you're internalizing anxiety. So most people don't have a felt sense of safety, or if they do, it's limited. If they have an extreme felt sense of safety, they're probably not buying this book. So we have to resource any felt sense of safety that we had prior to. And I have the somatic exercises in the book. I provide the reader with the meditations around that, internal anchoring. And we have to have the relationships outside that provide that type of emotional presence to internalize that safety. So it comes from outside in. And I know that sounds and you can cultivate it from within, but it's from the experience of safety that we can access safety. And I think it's really important for people to know that, like, you can't just wake up and learn to love yourself. You can't just wake up and say, I feel safe. There might be certain things that you can feel safe in the moment, but really internalizing safe anchors and internalizing or cultivating or practicing spending time with what it felt like in your body when you were in the presence of someone who was safe, and cultivating that experience over and over and over again, it becomes your new internal landscape. It becomes part of you.
We were talking a little bit before about what if I don't have somebody? And I was thinking about it's really hard to do in a romantic partnership, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I'm thinking about like in a friendship, like if a listener is in a friendship and they're wondering, okay, so if I need connection with somebody else in order to begin to experience internal safety, how can I invite my friend? Like, how can my friend and I perhaps like kind of go to that next place? Do you have thoughts about how we can start to like introduce this idea, not in a romantic relationship, but in a friendship or in a family relationship? Like, how could we start that practice, that journey together?
The book talks about co-anchoring. So I really hope that people pick up the book and they call that one friend and they say, hey, can you or will you be willing to anchor me? And if that friend said, let anchor me back, sure.
Yeah.
We can have what we call listening partners. But we need to have people who are committed to showing up for us consistently, who are warm. They have enough safety in their lives to be present and hold safety for us. And often, I run groups where people have listening partners and we co-anchor. We have co-anchoring experiences. And if you're listening, you might even have a relationship like that right now. You might even have a friend that friend calls you when they're really upset. You call them when you're really upset, or maybe it's one way. I have one relationship. I call him when I'm upset. I don't know that he ever gets really upset, but there's all different types of relationships out there. And you might have someone already in your Rolodex. And I definitely spell out like the co-anchoring experience in the book. So you definitely can take this book and use it with a friend and grab a co-anchor and do the work together. That's brilliant.
It's just so hopeful. It's so hopeful. I love that thank goodness for neuroplasticity. Like, thank goodness none of us are done, that we get to create new opportunities and experiences for ourselves.
100%. I'm so grateful for earned security. It really does exist, and you really do have to earn it.
Okay, so now let's think about a couple where, there's nothing like romantic partnership to activate all of those early attachment wounds. So how do we tend to our somatic needs and be there for our partner when conflicts arise and when core wounds are activated? That's a huge question, but take it wherever you want to go with it.
In chapter 6, I talk about like the patterns that repeat in our lives and how to understand when something has an implicit origin. So how to start to understand when it has earlier roots, how that lives somatically through sensation, mostly in the body, and how to become conscious of that in your partnerships. So you look at core wounds, you look at their charges, you look at themes that are repeating, and you look at what's going on in my body. So if my body is on fire, or if I shut down dramatically, or if I'm in fetal position, or if I feel like I can't breathe, we know through to the science that this isn't the first time your nervous system has experienced that. And so just that awareness and starting to build a relationship with that. In chapter 7, I dive into when it doesn't work, when implicitly things are too early wounded and too familiar, where you get stuck in the patterns over and over and over again. I explore narcissism and borderline, so early infant trauma. I explore that some relationships have the capacity to get conscious together, to start looking at the implicit world together, to change the conversation, to be able to hold the space of what's happening in here and now, and also have the awareness to know has earlier roots within me, and how to talk about that with your partner. I definitely dive deep into that. And I also have a whole chapter on when the wounding is too early in two people. It is very hard for those two people to have a mutually beneficial relationship. And I talk about that type of wounding in such a compassionate way. And those individuals just need more individual work before they can really provide the type of relational skills that's needed for deep, long-standing rupture and repair and commitment.
Yep. That is certainly, like, as a couple therapist, I have experienced that, where I'm working with a couple and we agree to pause the couple therapy and really prioritize individual therapy, knowing that and trusting that we can come back together, when there's a little bit more, kind of internal anchoring and a little bit more ventral available to both partners, certainly. But then there are times when a romantic relationship, like that kind of question of discerning, should I stay or should I go? Like, is there, do I keep trying to heal here, or do I need to move on? Which you addressed it in your own journey, and you address it in the book as well.
Yeah. And it's such a sad lesson for me that, you can't heal with everybody that you want to heal with, but you can heal no matter what. You need healing relationships, and you can't force your partner to do the work. I do think you could heal, and your partner might, and you might still stay because they might not activate you that much. Everybody's path is so, so different, and as a couples counselor and as people who come to me for healing, it's hard when you can't make your partner want to do the work as badly as you want to do the work. That's a very hard place that many anxiously attached people actually find themselves in. And if that's you, I would just encourage you to have the agency to just do your own work regardless. It will lead to so much more personal freedom. You have no idea.
That's right. That's right. Yes, it is it's so empowering to say that I don't. And because when one person changes in a system, the system changes. I don't know that somebody has to be as nerdy and deeply into this. Like you don't have equal depths in that, but there's a difference between being open to it and being contemptuous of it. I think that's a really important piece of the discernment.
And I think some people don't have the capacity. Like I now really honor people's capacity. Like if you don't want to go there, I remember telling my past partner at one point, I was like, I don't blame you. He's miserable now in another relationship, going through the same exact things. But I don't blame people for not wanting to go there. It is truly hard to walk through that. And it's something that both people have to choose to do for themselves,
Jessica, as we move to close, I asked you ahead of time, I was like, okay, what if I have you read a little bit? I would love for you to read a passage from your book. I just think it's so beautifully written and captures something that is so important. So let us turn to page 238, if you would.
All right. Healing goes something like this. If our parents weren't able to be present with us, we are left with the equivalent of raw wounds inside. We find ways to keep these hurting places from making our lives completely impossible. But the protective strategies we develop ultimately change the way we see the world. They also impact who we draw towards us and how we relate to them in relationship. Then, if we are lucky, a few trusted people come along who provide safe haven for us so we can become vulnerable enough for our inner protectors to step aside and bring this grief, fear, and pain into the light, where our anchors, both internal and external, meet it with the care that can soothe our pain. Over days, months, sometimes years, we are received enough that the felt sense in our bodies shifts in the directions of feeling safe, welcomed, loved, and tended. Then, like any wound that has healed, a scar remains. The scar makes us stronger than we were, and yet it also serves as a tender reminder that these things happen to us and that we must always keep searching for and maintaining safety in our lives. This is how the wound becomes the gift.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. Jessica, thank you for being here with me today. There's so much goodness to take out of your work and for people to start integrating into their lives and their journeys and their relationships. So tell us how people can stay connected to you and keep learning from you.
Yes. So there's a link for that talk with Bonnie and the wheel of attachment. So if you fill that out, buy the book, check your spam because it could go there. I run a group practice called the Conscious Relationship Group, and it's like 7 of us therapists that work on healing attachment wounds together. And I'm on Instagram at Jessica Baum, LMHC. And if you read the book and you want to contact me, I've said this on every podcast, but I respond to everybody personally. So I do really it means a lot to me if you reach out to me, and you will probably most likely get a response from me directly. So please reach out. Let me know how it's touched you, or whether you didn't like it or liked it, or where you are in your journey. I want to hear it all. And you are important to me. Every reader that reaches out does something for an author that I can't quite put into words. So Please reach out.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for joining me to talk all about embodied safety and the profound healing that relationships can offer us. The book, Safe, an attachment-informed guide to building more secure relationships, is truly beautiful, and it's packed with great information, and you can find a link to that in our show notes. This link will lead you to instructions for how you can claim some wonderful free gifts alongside your purchase, such as a meditation, an attachment guide called Beyond Labels, and a video of Jessica speaking with her mentor, Bonnie Badnack. Okay, now for some housekeeping. For the next little bit, we are going to be tweaking our podcast schedule, and we will be alternating new episodes with some of our Reimagining Love greatest hits from our collection that we have chosen specially for you. So keep an eye out for that. And until next time, be well. Thank you for listening to our show. Our producers are Mary Chan and Katie Pagich of Organized Sound Productions. Our theme music was composed by Slade Warnkin. The show is executive produced by me, Dr. Alexandra Solomon. Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening and see you next week here on Reimagining Love.